something is happening. Something extraordinary. And business will never be the same. Because UUNet is advancing the internet, growing our network 1,000% per year, adding thousands of miles of fiber and hundreds of thousands of new modem ports, helping millions do more, faster, better, making us the leading internet communications company, uniting the world of business. UUNet, a WorldCom company.
Want to color your gray beard or mustache and get a natural look? It's easy with Just for Men Gel.
You look so natural, no one can tell with Just for Men Gel. No one can tell with Just for Men Gel.
It's not regular hair coloring, it's specially made to penetrate that coarse, hard to color gray. Simply brush in and in 5 minutes, rinse. Now gray is gone, matched up to the rest of your hair.
You look so natural, no one can tell with Just for Men Gel.
Introducing a sports sedan that sets a new standard of performance and a touring sedan that sets a new standard of luxury. Here they are. Introducing the new TL with the satellite-linked navigation system from Acura.
I'm watching you, CNN.
As we await the release of the videotapes, politics is in the air. Congressional Democrats fear voter frustration over the Clinton sex scandal could cost them their jobs in November. Well, perhaps their worst worry that Democratic voters will be so disillusioned they stay home on Election Day or opt for Republican candidates. CNN's Bruce Morton takes a look at one campaign, that of U.S. Democratic Senator Fritz Hollings of South Carolina.
Yeah, Mom, how you doing?
How you doing?
You want to ride with me?
Democratic Senator Ernest Fritz Hollings campaigning for re-election this past weekend at the Harvest Hoedown in Enor, South Carolina.
Hey, you won the Publishers Clearinghouse. You believe it?
Oh, excellent.
I'm Bob Inglis.
Representative Bob Inglis, the Republican who wants Hollings' Senate seat, working a neighborhood in Charleston. What effect will the president's troubles have on this campaign?
It creates a somewhat negative environment for any Democrat. That would be helpful to us. How are you all doing?
But Inglis, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, is afraid he'll spend October working on impeachment, not campaigning.
There are not many votes in Washington, D.C.
Inglis wants the president to resign. Hollings, a potential juror in an impeachment trial, has simply condemned Clinton.
Look, yeah, if I'd been engaged in that kind of conduct, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be hiding somewhere.
And the voters?
I agree with what you said about discipline in our schools.
Yeah.
We got to do it.
Yes, sir.
The voters here talked to Hollings and Inglis about all sorts of things. Most of them didn't talk about Bill Clinton and his troubles.
I'm really big on his getting rid of the Social Security plan and giving an individual savings program.
Education's a big one.
Yeah.
Improve education.
It's on everyone's mind, of course, but will feelings about Clinton affect a vote for senator?
I don't find that the Democratic vote down here is demoralized. I don't find Democrats say, I'm going to stay home because of Bill Clinton. And the voters down here are not blaming Hollings for Bill Clinton.
Thanks a lot, yeah.
So Hollings and Inglis campaign and Clinton hovers offshore like a tropical storm. He could come ashore in South Carolina and change the shape of this campaign. So far, though, that hasn't happened.
Perfect union.
Bruce Morton, CNN, Charleston, South Carolina.
Even though Congress voted to release President Clinton's grand jury testimony, the public opinion polls are showing most Americans oppose its release.
Well, joining us now to talk about that and other poll results is CNN political analyst Bill Schneider. Bill, first of all, tell us, when were these polls done?
Well, the latest poll was done yesterday. Obviously, all of them are before the tapes have been released because they haven't been released. But some 87% of Americans say they already believe the president lied to the grand jury. After all, he lied to the American people back in January, so it wouldn't surprise them.
What do you have on impeachment and/or resignation?
What we're finding is that the number who say the president should be impeached has gone up about 4 points. That's now up to 36%. The number who think the president should resign from office and turn the presidency over to Al Gore, also up 4%. That's up to 40%. So we're not seeing a hemorrhaging of support for the president, but we're seeing some slippage. That's about 8 million Americans have turned against the president since the Starr report was released a week ago.
Now, just to be very specific, is this within or outside the so-called margin of error?
Well, it is just barely at the margin of error. One could argue that, it is, in fact, such a small change that it might be considered insignificant. But it is consistent across a whole range of questions. For instance, the number of people who say they approve the president's job, the way he's handling his job in office, has also declined by 4 points, from 64 to 60%. So again, consistent evidence about 4% turning against the president. That's why I say it's not a hemorrhage, but it is some slippage for the president we're most likely seeing in the poll, just shy of the margin of error to be statistically significant.
Okay, thank you, Bill Schneider. It has not made air yet, but it's already looking to make money. The tape has rocketed to #1 sales spot at Amazon.com. The online seller of books, videos, and music began offering the tapes of Mr. Clinton's testimony for $9.95 plus shipping. The company will begin sending the tapes at the end of this week.
Bernie, we are now looking at the clock over there, just about 10 minutes away from the official release of these tapes. We know there may be a few minutes after that before the tapes can actually be distributed, but it's getting close. Yeah. If you have children at home, as you are watching this whole story unfold, what do you tell them?
Or better yet, what do you not tell them? Coming up, we're going to talk with a man who studies the impact of seeing things on tape and television.
These days, it seems like everybody's got a Cherokee or an Explorer. Me, I like to stand out a bit.
That's why I drive a Subaru Outback.
With a big cargo bay and all-wheel drive, you get all the sport utility you need. But with the smooth ride and better gas mileage, the Outback is far from ordinary. Like me, really. What a weird-looking bunch that was.
We were on vacation in New Orleans, great city, but every night I got this awful heartburn. A woman in our tour group said, "Here, try Zantac 75. "Oh, thank you," I said. "You're a saint." She said, "No, actually, I'm a doctor."
The medicine in Zantac 75 is the #1 doctor-prescribed acid reducer. It relieves even your toughest heartburn, controlling acid for up to 12 hours.
Maybe a doctor and a saint.
Zantac 75, the final word in heartburn relief.
Sweet dream, baby. Sweet dream, baby. Sweet dream, baby. How long must I dream?
Sweet dreams from Doubletree.
For your pleasure, Senator. And the press is behind that bus.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing how profitable a worldwide hotel chain or any business becomes when it unleashes its most powerful weapon, information.
You like the Paris papers and steak tartare from Coco.
Oh, Coco. No. Thank you.
The EMC effect. It's not bad for tips either.
We're back at Ericsson Stadium where we're down to the final seconds of the game and it's still tied. The kick's high.
Ericsson mobile phones. Catch the excitement.
As the minutes count down to the release of those videotapes, Bernie, let's go now to Bob Franken at the Capitol, where the decision to release all this was made.
And as a matter of fact, the release is proceeding slightly ahead of schedule, actually. Of course, we're a few minutes before 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And with me is Congressman Charles Kennedy, a member of the Judiciary Committee. What are you holding there?
These are the materials that are being released today. Basically, this is the appendix to the Starr report, which has been previously published. This is the supporting documentation for the assertions that are made in the Starr report. There's really not much new here. Certain materials have been redacted. We have attempted to eliminate unnecessary salacious material. Unfortunately, there are still some matters here that people wouldn't talk about in polite company that have to be made public because they're relevant to the underlying question of whether the president committed perjury in his deposition and committed perjury before the grand jury, as well as other charges that have been raised against him.
This material includes Monica Lewinsky's testimony, and that is where the Democrats say that, in fact, you did vote to leave in material that was unnecessarily graphic to make your case.
Well, ultimately, people have to make their own judgment about that, but I will say this. If the president would stop the legal hair splitting, and if the president would stop mounting the defense that he is mounting right now based on legal hair splitting, a lot of this could be dispensed with. But unfortunately, the president is pursuing the strategy that he has previously pursued, and we believe that it's important for the American people to have the facts on which any ultimate judgment here is based. People can't have confidence in the judgment we make unless they know the basis on which our judgment rests.
Do you worry that this is so explicit, so descriptive, that there might be a backlash against you for releasing this, you the Republicans?
Well, I'm sure people will be uncomfortable with some of these materials. I'm uncomfortable with much of this material. But we have a responsibility that the House of Representatives has given us to get to the truth in this matter, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think the American people want us to get to the truth.
Let me just ask, since we're at such a historic moment, could you just hold this up to show the American people, to show the world what it is, in fact, that there has been such a fight before. This is the 2,800 pages of material that form the basis for the Ken Starr report, correct?
That's correct. Of course, I don't have the video, which will be released later. And I think that I can't comment on that because I don't think that's been formally released yet. But I think that what people are going to see in the video is important because it will help them judge the president's credibility and truthfulness while he was testifying. That's why the video was released. Observing the demeanor of any witness can be helpful in assessing the witness's credibility.
Now, I'm looking at, as I'm thumbing through this, I hope you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm looking at, there is material, for instance, that shows the president's deposition. It shows admissibility here, evidentiary issues. I haven't gotten to the Monica Lewinsky testimony. Let's take a look at the table of contents, if I could, please. It talks about Monica Lewinsky's, some of the redactions here, sexual descriptions are redacted.
One thing you'll see at the very beginning of the report is a lengthy list of redactions. We have eliminated significant portions of material that were of an explicitly sexual nature, other matters that would have compromised the privacy rights of individuals. So a very diligent effort was made to go through here and eliminate any such matters that did not have evidentiary value.
Okay, now I'm looking at the table of contents, and we show such things as the order permitting the disclosure of grand jury material, a map of the White House West Wing, table of Monica Lewinsky White House visits, the Monica Lewinsky immunity agreement. Then we see the statement from President Clinton. We see statements from Monica Lewinsky. That is, of course, the controversial part of this disclosure. The Democrats, of course, charge that much of this is unnecessary, and of course, your point is that it is important that the case be presented to show whether the president told the truth or not.
Well, that's absolutely right. And it's important to understand that a majority of the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee are really at odds with the majority of Democrats in the House.
I have to interrupt you here. So we're seeing the first release of these documents, which of course went to the members of Congress. They should be released to the general public soon, and soon we should be seeing the videotape of the president's testimony. Bernie and Judy?
All right, Bob Franken, thank you. Events are moving very quickly now, Bernie.
Indeed, and we're just moments away. The tapes or the information, as you saw and heard, released to members of Congress. This is the feed room. It is from this room that the networks will receive the videotape of the president's grand jury testimony. CNN will bring it to you very, very promptly as soon as it's made available to us. We'll be right back with our special reporting investigating the president.
Sunday on Cold War. They were unlikely allies, but their war with the Nazis could not prevent a growing distrust that would eventually threaten all of mankind. Cold War begins Sunday, 8 Eastern on CNN.
Tonight on CNN, a special report on President Clinton's videotaped testimony and newly released evidence, followed by a special 2-hour Larry King Live. It all begins tonight at 8 Eastern on CNN. If it happened in sports today, you'll see it on Sports Tonight with Fred and Vince. Weeknights, 11 Eastern on CNN.
Today, your TV has more channels than ever before. But Media One knows it's not about more. It's about more of what you're into. That's why we've just created Next TV. Because maybe you're into this, or all of this. Next TV gives you a range of premium movie packages to choose from, and new ways of watching just what you want to watch. It all adds up to a whole new way of watching TV. Media One. This is broadband. This is the way.
Sign up today. Call toll-free 1-877-GO-NEXT-TV.
Could your kitchen use a new look? Imagine having kitchen cabinets that used to look like this, now look like this, and for no money down and payments as low as $79 a month. How do you do it? It's easy. Just call Facelifters today and take advantage of our half-price offer going on now. Give your kitchen a beautiful new look within 3 to 5 days by replacing those old and worn kitchen doors and drawers, and without the mess of custom kitchen remodeling. For years, Facelifters has been a familiar name in your neighborhood. Call us today for a free, no-obligation estimate.
It's only a little scratch.
What you need is GS27 Scratch Remover. It's new from Duralube. GS27 gets rid of those surface scratches and paint swirls quickly and easily. Simply rub it into the scratch, then polish to a beautiful finish. The scratch is gone. GS27 is only $14.95, but order now and get a second tube for only $5. That's 2 for just $19.95.
To order GS27, call 1-800-816-1717.
It's my birthday. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, I told you, don't be bringing that weak stuff in here. Yeah. Who's the man? Who's the man?
Exercised lately?
Tonight with Fred and Vince, 11 Eastern on CNN.
This is a special report from CNN and CNN International. Investigating the President, CNN Special Live coverage with Bernard Shaw and Judy Woodruff.
Thank you for joining us for CNN's special coverage, Investigating the President, the Clinton tape. And we want to welcome our international viewers.
In a few minutes, an unprecedented event will begin. The release of an unedited videotape showing the President of the United States testifying under oath before a federal grand jury. We are standing by awaiting the release of the videotape, which we will bring to you immediately. This tape will be fed from this room in the Rayburn House Office Building on Capitol Hill. From here, it will be sent out to television networks and over the internet. While we are waiting for the feed to begin, here's a look at the latest developments. Along with the tape, Congress is releasing 2,800 pages of transcripts from the Ken Starr investigation. You saw a portion of the pages Bob Franken held in talking with Congressman Kennedy just a moment ago. Those documents include Monica Lewinsky's explicit descriptions of her sexual encounters with the President. While all this is going on, the President will be addressing world leaders at the United Nations. As Mr. Clinton prepares for his speech before the UN General Assembly in New York, lawmakers here in Washington are debating the impact of the President's tape testimony.
I don't think the tape will make that much difference. That's where most of the hype is. I think most of the criticism of the tape should be pointed out that there is sexually explicit material in the tape, not from the President's mouth, but from some of the questions he was asked. I think we would have done a great service by deleting some of the questions, not the President's statements. But also the 2,800 pages, there is graphic sexual material in that, in what we released, and it serves no legal or legislative purpose.
This is unfortunate. This is a sad sight that the American people are going to see, but if the people are going to have confidence in the process we're going through here, they have to have access to the information on which our conclusions will be based.
When the videotape becomes available, here is how we are going to handle it. We will air the tape in its entirety. That may take more than 4 hours. We're planning to air it as it is being released by the House Judiciary Committee unedited. And we want to warn you again that both language and descriptions of the videotape may be offensive to some viewers and unsuitable for children.
Despite the president's political troubles, his public support remains strong. In the latest CNN Gallup poll completed just yesterday, President Clinton has a 60% approval rating. Now, that is down about 4% from a week ago. 40% say the president should resign. 35% say that he should be impeached. And those numbers are up slightly from a week ago. 19% of the people polled say they plan to watch the president's videotaped grand jury testimony as it is released. 8% say they plan to watch it later. 15% say they will only watch the excerpts on news programs, but 55% say they will not watch it at all.
And to our viewers around the world, we are awaiting receipt of the videotape. Bob Franken is on the Hill.
Well, Bernie, it's amazing and remarkable that this is going so close to schedule. We have just learned that the videotapes are on the move. They're now being taken to the playback room in the Rayburn House office building, where they will be played over live television for the world to see. It's the information, it's President Clinton's testimony before the grand jury, August 17th, with unedited. There's absolutely everything left in. We will see and hear the graphic questions. We will see and hear his response, which is oftentimes explosive. We have also just seen copies of the 2,800 pages of supporting documents. A member of the Judiciary Committee, Charles Kennedy, showed us 2 huge volumes put out by the government printing office, which contains the material, including Monica Lewinsky's testimony before the grand jury, which will be extremely graphic, extremely explicit, which we will see as that is spread by broadcast and telecast and on the internet, so it will also be shown around the world. We've also seen that it includes map of the White House. It includes a number of supporting documents. It's going to be a very, very busy day. And in moments, we're looking at the playout room where the videotapes are going to be in just a few minutes, Bernie and Judy, and then they will be played so we can all see.
And then we'll have a transcript, too, and we'll be able to go along with watching the tape, Bob. We'll be able to follow it, Judy, word for word, which will be helpful in keeping track of things.
Now, we've been hearing from Bob, who's at the Capitol. Now let's move down Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House, where CNN correspondent John King is. John.
Judy, White House officials bracing now as we're just a few minutes away from seeing this president, seeing any president like never before. Under oath inside the White House, facing pointed questions about a sexual relationship with a young intern, sexual liaisons just a few steps from the Oval Office. White House officials have no idea how the American public will react to this. As you just mentioned, so far the polls saying that the public still approves of the president's job performance. White House aides worried, though, about a creep up in the polls when people are asked about resignation or impeachment. Here at the White House today, sources telling us we will see many faces of the president today. Angry at times at the line of questioning about his relationship with Monica Lewinsky, remorseful at times about the fact that he had such a relationship with a young woman inside the White House. Also, at times, we're told the president is quite evasive, refusing to answer direct and specific questions about his sexual conduct with Monica Lewinsky. Those questions aimed by prosecutors in an attempt to prove the president committed perjury back in January in the Paula Jones sexual harassment case. That is viewed here at the White House as one of the strongest areas in the independent counsel's report as Congress considers whether to impeach the president. Everyone here at the White House today on pins and needles. Now, not only about the president's testimony, many actually worry more about the damaging information, the embarrassing information in those 2,800 pages of supporting documents, which include both of Monica Lewinsky's appearances before the grand jury and some 20 interviews she conducted with the FBI. She lays out in graphic detail her account of her relationship with the president. Again, people at the White House worried about how the American people will react when they hear about the president's conduct. Bernie, Judy.
And John, just one quick clarifying question. No one at the White House has seen this videotape that's going to be made public just moments from now.
No one has seen the videotape. The president's lawyers, David Kendall and Chuck Ruff, were in the room when the president testified, so they certainly know what the president said. They're wondering, just like all of us are, how does he look on camera? We do know the camera only captures the president. You will hear the prosecutors asking questions. You will only see the president of the United States under oath answering those questions.
John King at the White House Mall. Back to the Hill. Candy Crowley, as we await receipt of the tape, the journalists and technicians in the Rayburn office building feed room are poised, as are you.
Absolutely, and poised, I might say, somewhat alone, because if Capitol Hill lawmakers are waiting breathlessly for this material, they are doing it elsewhere. It is Rosh Hashanah. Most of the House members, many of the House members have gone back to their districts. Only a handful are here. On the Senate side, the Jewish members are not here. There will be a Senate session, but not one where much is expected to happen. So it is a fairly empty Capitol Hill in which this all plays out. We are, of course, awaiting the videotape from the Rayburn office building. The government printing office has worked throughout the weekend to put out this 2,800 pages worth of material in 2 volumes. They will be available for public distribution. The media is going to get its first printed copies of this material in the House Radio TV gallery. There you see members of the media waiting for those 2 volumes that we've seen from Congressman Kennedy, waiting in that room for those particular documents to come out. We're told that it should be very soon. As you can see, members of the House already have theirs. We should be getting ours momentarily. Again, all of these will also be made public via the internet. The videotape, of course, will be replayed and played out over many broadcast networks, including CNN. Bernie and Judy?
All right, Candy, we've been listening, Bernie, to what the public opinion polls are showing, and we've got a sampling of our own just now. Our Susan Candiotti is at the University of Miami. I believe it's the Student Center. Is that right, Susan?
Right, we're in the Student Union at the lounge, and we've got a group of quickly filled up just moments ago, these students, many of them wanting to hear and watch these videotapes. Let me ask you, first of all, have you made up your mind about what should happen to the president?
Oh, I don't think he should be impeached at all. I think it's his business, you know. If he made a mistake, I think it should be dealt with between him and his wife, him and his family, and we should be worrying about other problems.
Your friend, you agree with your friend, don't you? But there is also debate, what if the president is proven to have lied under oath?
Well, if he's proven to lie under oath, it's not as if some of these politicians don't lie every day, but considering what's going on in places such as the Middle East or what's happening, I think this imbalance in power would be a problem.
Why did you want to come here today? Here, let me move back over in this direction, talk with a couple of young ladies here. Excuse me. You came also here to watch the tapes. Why did you think it important to take time out from classes to see what's going on?
Because it's very important to know what's going on in our country, and the president is the most important person in our country. And this is a very big deal because he could be impeached, or he could resign, or it has something to do with his office.
Do you think that the president should be impeached if it is proven that he lied under oath?
No, I don't think he should be impeached. I think it should be his decision. It was his own business, private business, that the country has gone into, and I think it should just lay low.
Big crowd here today to watch the president, so we'll see whether his support declines after these tapes air or whether the release of these tapes will backfire. Judy, back to you.
All right, Susan Candiotti, thanks. Very interesting responses here.
Very interesting indeed. As we say, the videotapes are on their way to the distribution center at the Rayburn office building. As we keep saying it, as soon as we get the tapes here, we will put them on the air. And we should tell you, our viewers around the world, obviously something is happening in that corridor. Still cameras, flashes going off, and this could be it.
Bernie, all the fuss is over exactly 4 videotape cassettes. I mean, most of us know the size of a videotape cassette. It's what, 6 inches by 8 inches, something like that. 4, I don't know. Somebody can tell us.
Yes, this one woman has.
But here they are.
Handed over 3 manila envelopes. The other woman hands over 2. And we should tell you that these tapes will come in segments, and there'll be about a 2-minute lapse of time between the segments, and we'll come back between each segment.
And the segments, we're told, represent different chunks of the president's testimony. There were breaks during the president's time before the grand jury on August the 17th. When we asked Bernie what those breaks represented, I believe it was indicated to us that it will be clear when we see these tapes why there was a pause.
And quickly, for you viewers who are videotaping around the world, The first segment will last 11 minutes, the second one 67 minutes, the third segment 50 minutes, segment 4 47 minutes, segment 5 32 minutes, segment 6 21 minutes. The last segment, segment 7, will last 15 minutes total, 4 hours, 3 minutes.
And, as Bernie indicated, 7 different segments, and these 7 segments have been put on these 4 videotapes that you saw just put into the hands of the video engineers. They're working this equipment. These tapes, there's 1 copy of each one of these tapes, and each tape has a couple or 3 segments on it, are being fed to the different television network outlets, including CNN, and each one of us, of course, have the right to do with it as we will. It is CNN's decision to air these just as quickly as we can with a very minimal delay.
And you're watching the tapes being queued up.
We want to point out again, Bernie, we've said this again and again, and I don't think we can say it too often. There is, in some instances, there will be, in some instances, very explicit references, explicit sexual references, and we're told in the questions during the president's testimony before the grand jury, actually before the prosecutors who are going to be asking him questions during this 4 hours of testimony. And if anyone has any idea at this point that they may be offended by this, they need to be mindful of that ahead of time. If there are young people around the television, again, it's something that you want to keep in mind because there will be explicit sexual references in the questioning of the president.
If you don't want to explain any of this to your child, you should not have your child in the room watching. Candy?
Bernie, I was just sitting here looking at this. These people generally toil in the bowels of the Rayburn building in obscurity, and we're sort of like one push of the play button away from history. Right now, looking to make sure that the video levels and the audio levels are correct, that no doubt it is being looked at the various broadcast stations to make sure they are getting the correct audio and video levels. But basically, while the machinery looks complicated, this is not all that much more complicated than your VCR. There's a button for play and a button for stop, and once he hits that play, we're in business here. But this is a very little known area of Capitol Hill, and I suspect that when the day's over, it will be a lot better known.
On this momentous day, the principals are away. John King?
Talk to a source on Capitol Hill to bring us up to speed. Not only will we see the president's videotape, but as Bob Franken showed us earlier in the program, we will get 2,800 pages of Ken Starr's supporting documents. This lays out in painstaking, meticulous detail the 8 months of his investigation. I'm told that in here we will see in the documents a black and white photograph of that blue cocktail dress that Monica Lewinsky turned over to investigators. As well in there, the FBI crime lab analysis of a stain on that dress. The FBI determined that that indeed was the president's DNA matter on that dress. Other photographs in the book include a photograph of a tie the president wore at a South Lawn event the very day Monica Lewinsky testified before the grand jury. That tie, a gift from Monica Lewinsky from back during their relationship. Also in there, we're told, telephone logs of the president's schedule, the First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton's schedule, as the independent counsel shows that on many of the times the president met with Monica Lewinsky, Hillary Clinton was out of town, indeed even sometimes out of the country. Other phone logs from the president, Monica Lewinsky's letters when she was conducting a job in which she says on several times to people she's writing at the request, at the recommendation of Vernon Jordan, a close friend of the president, a central figure in this investigation. Even a copy of a canceled check to the Democratic National Committee, a contribution from Monica Lewinsky in 1996 when the president was seeking re-election.
John, we've been catching glimpses as you've been talking of the president on those small screens over the shoulders of the technicians, and as Candy said, what they're doing right now, the reason for the delay is they are checking what they call video and audio levels and other technical terms that some of us on this side of the camera aren't able to explain to you, but suffice it to say that they're making sure the picture is as good as it can be before it is sent out to a worldwide audience. We've spoken about the president this morning. He is in New York City with Mrs. Clinton. CNN's Eileen O'Connor is traveling up there with him as he begins or prepares to address the United Nations. Eileen, what are the president and the First Lady doing at this hour as these tapes are about to be made public?
Well, they're preparing to leave their hotel right now, Judy, and make their way just a few blocks over to the United Nations. They'll be here about half an hour from now. Then they'll be meeting with Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the UN, before the president gives what aides here are saying is a major foreign policy speech, a call to the international community to join in a global fight against terrorism. Aides are expressing extreme frustration, of course, that at the same time these tapes are going to be played, and that, of course, it is the tapes that are going to be played live on various broadcast networks and also receive the most of the attention this evening on the evening news, instead of what they say is this major foreign policy initiative here at the United Nations. They're also pointing out, Judy, the poor timing of this, saying the president is not just addressing the opening of the UN General Assembly, he's also having some very important bilateral meetings here today, really at the center of the world stage, and they say that this is clearly an embarrassing moment for these tapes to be played, and they feel that the decision to release them now was purely political. Judy?
All right, that's Eileen O'Connor. We are continuing to show you this room in the Rayburn House office building where television technicians have just been handed videotape. You can see it on the very small screen over their shoulders. This is the president in the map room of the White House on August the 17th, just a little over a month ago, when he was asked questions for about 4 hours, Bernie, by prosecutors, Ken Starr himself at the end, but mainly by a couple of associate or assistant independent counsels who are working with Ken Starr.
And they're queuing up these tapes. I wanted to point something out. There are two monitors. You see the president in the two monitors, the upper left-hand corner of your screen. The technician on the left was queuing up the president's head so that it tilted almost identically at the angle as shown in the second monitor there. That's what they're doing, and there are two other monitors, and I infer from that in a little while we're going to get these tapes. Watching all this, our legal analysts, Greta Van Susteren and Roger Cossack.
You know, Roger, what's so...
Greta, you're there.
Yes.
Yes. We want to ask you, I mean, you all have been involved in the legal processes in this country for some time. This is an extraordinary situation. Grand jury testimony, which is typically kept secret, being made public.
And no doubt about that, Judy, but this was part of a deal with Ken Starr in exchange for a videotape, which would ultimately end up in political hands and subject to disclosure rather than just remain in court hands. The president he got something. He had to have his lawyer present with him when he testified. There was a time limit put on the testimony of 4 hours, and of course it was at the White House. Now, in hindsight, I'm sure the president realizes that this was a bad deal that he entered into, because now everyone is going to witness his grand jury testimony, and testimony on videotape is so different from a transcript. A transcript says witness left the room, witness returned. A video shows if the witness is indeed mad, stamping his feet, has a red face, or whatever.
You know, Judy, on the other hand, it's really one of those things where the American public will truly get to see something that they never get to see, which is what goes on in a grand jury. You'll see that the president, although he had a lawyer, the lawyer didn't really help him much. There was nobody to ask him, friendly person to ask him questions. That's what it is in a grand jury. The prosecutor asks the questions. There's no defense lawyer all the time except for when the president testified. So this is an unusual event, and probably in the rest of our life we will never ever get a chance to see what goes on inside a grand jury.
Here's an update for our viewers. About 30 seconds ago, we got a 4-minute warning, a 4-minute heads-up signal. So in less than 4 minutes now, we will have these tapes. Bob Franken. Bob Franken is on the Hill.
Are you able to hear me, Bernie?
Yes, we received the 4-minute warning about 45 seconds ago, so we're getting closer.
We're getting closer, and I think it's fair to say that people are going to be seeing material on television they have never seen before, and the big debate up here, of course, is a political debate. Who is going to be the one that shoulders much of the blame? Is the president, in fact, going to be severely damaged by the very, very graphic nature of this being the videotape and, of course, the Monica Lewinsky testimony, or will the Republicans, will Ken Starr be blamed for, in fact, imposing this on the American public? Will the Democrats be successful in saying to the voters out there that this was unnecessary to make their case? Well, we'll all be able to make that judgment in less than 4 minutes, as you said, Bernie, as these tapes are played, and everybody, including the political analysts, watch this very closely, to use the expression, to see how it plays.
John King at the White House. Refresh our memories. This all happened on August the 17th. At what time of day?
August 17th in the map room. The president walked into the room just before 1 o'clock. We're told his testimony actually began 1:03 p.m. in the afternoon. It's 4 hours and 12 minutes long. The map room now will be remembered for history of a different sort. So President videotaped grand jury testimony. It was in that room during World War II that FDR planned many of the Allied strikes on Europe when they were trying to recapture Normandy, for example. The president's aides bracing for this now. All week long, the past week, they've been bracing for how the public will react to this. We're told that very early on we will see evidence of the animosity, the deep animosity between this president and the independent counsel and his staff investigating this president these past 4 years. The president will be asked very early on in this testimony if he understands the meaning of the whole truth. The White House took that as a shot from prosecutors, an early warning to the president that the prosecutors were going to get at his conduct, his testimony in the Paula Jones case back in January, suggesting that after he took an oath and gave that sworn deposition back in January, that the president did not tell the whole truth. We will also hear the president read a statement in which he acknowledges an intimate contact, inappropriate intimate contact with Monica Lewinsky, but says that he does not want to get into the details because he wants to protect his family from embarrassment, also to protect the dignity of his office. From there, we get into very pointed questioning, not only about the sexual relationship, but about the president's conversations with others here at the White House about finding a job for Monica Lewinsky and the president's conduct throughout the past 8 months of Ken Starr's investigation. Judy, Bernie.
It is time to be silent. It is time to watch. It is time to listen to William Jefferson Clinton testifying under oath.
We are just seconds away, and we will be quiet so that you can watch and listen.
Grand jury is in session. There is a quorum. There are no unauthorized persons in the grand jury room, and they are prepared to receive the testimony of the president. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We will proceed with the oath.
Mr. President, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your full name for the record, sir?
William Jefferson Clinton.
My name is Saul Weisenberg. I'm a Deputy Independent Counsel with the Office of Independent Counsel. And with me today are some other attorneys from the Office of Independent Counsel. At the courthouse are the ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury prepared to receive your testimony as you give it. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, I do.
This proceeding is subject to Rule 6E of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure as modified by Judge Johnson's order. You are appearing voluntarily today as part of an agreement worked out between your attorney, the Office of the Independent Counsel, and with the approval of Judge Johnson. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Mr. Weisenberg, excuse me, you referred to Judge Johnson's order. I'm not familiar with that order. Have we been served that or not?
No, my understanding is that that is an order that the judge is going to sign today. She didn't have the name of a person. And basically, my understanding is that it will cover all of the attorneys here today and the technical people in the room, so that they will be authorized persons permitted to hear grand jury testimony that they otherwise wouldn't be authorized to hear.
Thank you.
The grand jury, Mr. President, has been impaneled by a United States District Court for the District of Columbia. Do you understand that, sir?
I do.
And among other things is currently investigating under the authority of the Court of Appeals upon application by the Attorney General whether Monica Lewinsky or others obstructed justice, intimidated witnesses, or committed other crimes related to the case of Jones versus Clinton. Do you understand that, sir?
I do.
And today, you'll be receiving questions not only from attorneys on the OIC staff, but from some of the grand jurors, too. Do you understand?
Yes, sir, I do.
I'm going to talk briefly about your rights and responsibilities as a grand jury witness. Normally, grand jury witnesses, while not allowed to have attorneys in the grand jury room with them, can stop and consult with their attorneys. Under our arrangement today, your attorneys are here and present for consultation, and you can break to consult with them as necessary, but it won't count against our total time. You understand that, sir?
I do understand that.
You have a privilege against self-incrimination. If a truthful answer to any question would tend to incriminate you, you can invoke the privilege, and that invocation will not be used against you. You understand that?
I do.
And if you don't invoke it, however, any answer that you do give can and will be used against you. You understand that, sir?
I do.
Mr. President, you understand that your testimony here today is under oath.
I do.
And you understand that because you have sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that if you were to lie or intentionally mislead the grand jury, you could be prosecuted for perjury and or obstruction of justice.
I believe that's correct.
Is there anything that I have stated to you regarding your rights and responsibilities that you would like to clarify that you don't understand?
No, sir.
Mr. President, I'd like to read for you a portion of Federal Rule of Evidence 603, which discusses the important function the oath has in our judicial system. It says that the purpose of the oath is one, quote, calculated to awaken the witness's conscience and impress the witness's mind with the duty, end quote, to tell the truth. Could you please tell the grand jury what that oath means to you for today's testimony?
I have sworn an oath to tell the grand jury the truth, and that's what I intend to do.
You understand that it requires you to give the whole truth, that is a complete answer to each question, sir?
I will answer each question as accurately and fully as I can.
Now, you took the same oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on January 17th, 1998, in a deposition in the Paula Jones litigation. Is that correct, sir?
I did take an oath then.
Did the oath you took on that occasion mean the same to you then as it does today?
I believe then that I had to answer the questions truthfully. That's correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, sir.
I believe that I had to answer the questions truthfully. That's correct.
And it meant the same to you then as it does today?
Well, no one read me a definition then, and we didn't go through this exercise then. I swore an oath to tell the truth, and I believed I was bound to be truthful, and I tried to be.
At the Paula Jones deposition, you were represented by Mr. Robert Bennett, your counsel. Is that correct?
That is correct.
He was authorized by you to be a representative there, your attorney. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Your counsel, Mr. Bennett, indicated at page 5 of the deposition, lines 10 through 12, I'm quoting, "The President intends to give full and complete answers as Ms. Jones is entitled to have," end quote. My question to you is, do you agree with your counsel that a plaintiff in a sexual harassment case is, to use his words, entitled to have the truth?
I believe that I was bound to give truthful answers. Yes, sir.
But the question is, sir, do you agree with your counsel that a plaintiff in a sexual harassment case is entitled to have the truth?
I believe when a witness is under oath in a civil case or otherwise under oath, the witness should do everything possible to answer the questions truthfully.
I'm going to turn over questioning now to Mr. Bittman of our office, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bittman.
My name is Robert Bittman. I'm attorney with the Office of Independent Counsel. Mr. President, we are first going to turn to some of the details of your relationship with Monica Lewinsky that follow up on your deposition that you provided in the Paula Jones case, as was referenced, on January 17, 1998. Questions are uncomfortable, and I apologize for that in advance. I will try to be as brief and direct as possible. Mr. President, were you physically intimate with Monica Lewinsky?
Mr. Bittman, I think maybe I can save you and the grand jury a lot of time if I read a statement which I think will make it clear what the nature of my relationship with Ms. Lewinsky was, how it related to the testimony I gave, what I was trying to do in that testimony. And I think it will perhaps make it possible for you to ask even more relevant questions from your point of view. And with your permission, I'd like to read that statement.
Absolutely. Please, Mr. President.
When I was alone with Ms. Lewinsky on certain occasions in early 1996 and once in early 1997, I engaged in conduct that was wrong. These encounters did not consist of sexual intercourse. They did not constitute sexual relations as I understood that term to be defined at my January 17, 1998 deposition. But they did involve inappropriate, intimate contact. These inappropriate encounters ended at my insistence in early 1997. I also had occasional telephone conversations with Ms. Lewinsky that included inappropriate sexual banter. I regret that what began as a friendship came to include this conduct, and I take full responsibility for my actions. While I will provide the grand jury whatever other information I can, because of privacy considerations affecting my family, myself, and others, and in an effort to preserve the dignity of the office I hold, this is all I will say about the specifics of these particular matters. I will try to answer to the best of my ability other questions, including questions about my relationship with Ms. Lewinsky, questions about my understanding of the term sexual relations as I understood it to be defined at my January 17, 1998 deposition, and questions concerning alleged subordination of perjury, obstruction of justice, and intimidation of witnesses. That, Mr. Bittman, is my statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with that, we would like to take a break.
Would you like to have this?
Yes, please. In fact, why don't we have that marked as Grand Jury Exhibit WJC-1.
So we're going to take a break.
Take a break. Can we have the camera off now, please?
Well, Bernie, what we saw was a break that occurred during the president's testimony. What we're going to try to do throughout these 4 hours of testimony is when the tape itself goes to a break of about, 2 minutes, we're going to show you that as it naturally occurred during the president's appearance before the prosecutors.
The next segment will run 67 minutes. John King at the White House. It was obvious that President Clinton was trying to lay down parameters affecting what he would and would not say.
Bernie, from the very beginning, a remarkable picture of the president. Americans have never seen anything like this. Their president raising his hand and taking an oath. You're right, from the very beginning, trying to say that he would admit to inappropriate, intimate contact with Monica Lewinsky and hope that from there, prosecutors would go on to what the president called, quote, more relevant questions about the allegations of obstruction of justice, about the allegations of witness tampering. The White House the president trying to steer this away from sex from the very beginning, although as we will see in the next 4 hours, we're told by sources prosecutors repeatedly press him for details of his relationship with Monica Lewinsky, a very different President Clinton on camera. Most Americans used to seeing this president very relaxed on camera, very casual. He's choosing his words very carefully, very deliberative here from the very beginning.
John, we've been told there's less than a minute before this tape will resume again. CNN will always take this just as soon as we are able. John, do we know why there was this break, just quickly?
No, we know there were a number of breaks throughout the proceedings. There are normal breaks, just so there was a break for lunch at one point. Later on, there's an hour-long break when the president leaves the room. He's angry at one point and they take a break. This first break, we assume, is just a routine break. The lawyers talking amongst themselves. No reason given for that first break.
Okay, let's go back to the tape now. It's just a matter of seconds away.
And again, 67 minutes long, this next one.
Yes.
Mr. President, your statement indicates that your contacts with Ms. Lewinsky did not involve an inappropriate, intimate contact.
No, sir, it indicates that it did involve inappropriate, intimate contact.
It did involve inappropriate, intimate.
Yes, sir, it did.
Mr. Britton, the witness does not have a copy of the statement. Thank you.
Was this contact with Ms. Lewinsky, Mr. President, did it involve any sexual contact in any way, shape, or form?
Mr. Bittman, I said in the statement, I would like to stay to the terms of the statement. I think it's clear what inappropriately intimate is. I have said what it did not include. It did not include sexual intercourse, and I do not believe it included conduct which falls within the definition I was given in the Jones deposition. And I would like to stay with that characterization.
Let's then move to the definition that was provided you during your deposition. We will have that marked as Grand Jury Exhibit WJC2. This is an exact copy, Mr. President, of the exhibit that was provided you during that deposition. And I'm sure you remember from the deposition that paragraph 1 of the definition remained in effect. Judge Wright ruled that that was to be the guiding definition, and that paragraphs 2 and 3 were stricken. Do you remember that, Mr. President?
Yes. Specifically, what I remembered is there were two different discussions, I think, of this. There was quite an extended one in the beginning, and everybody was entering into it, and then in the end, the judge said that she would take the first definition and strike the rest of it. That's my memory.
Did you, well, at page 19 of your deposition in the case, the attorney who provided you with the definition asked you, would you please take whatever time you need to read the definition? And later on in the deposition, you did, of course, refer to the definition several times. Were you, during the deposition, familiar with the definition?
Yes, sir. Let me just ask a question. If you're going to ask me about my deposition, could I have a copy of it? Does anybody have a copy of it?
We have a copy. We'll provide you with a copy.
Full record is Grand Jury JC3.
Excuse me.
Yes, thank you.
Now, did you say that was on page 19, Mr. Bittman?
Page 19, Mr. President, beginning at line 21. And I'll read it in full. This is from the Jones attorney. Would you please take whatever time you need to read this definition, because when I use the term sexual relations, this is what I mean today.
Yes, sir. That starts on 19, and let me say that there is a, just for the record, my recollection was accurate. There's a long discussion here between the attorneys and the judge. It goes on to page 23, and in the end, the judge says, I'm talking only about part 1 in the definition. And do you understand that? And I answered, I do. So the judge says part 1, and then the lawyer for Ms. Jones says he's only talking about part 1. They ask me if I understand it. I say I do, and that was my understanding. I might also note that when I was given this and began to ask questions about it, I actually circled number 1. This is my circle here. I remember doing that so I could focus only on those 2 lines, which is what I did.
Did you understand the words in the first portion of the exhibit, Mr. President? That is, for the purposes of this deposition, a person engages in quote-unquote sexual relations when a person knowingly engages in or causes. Did you understand, do you understand the words there in that phrase?
Yes, I can tell you what my understanding of the definition is if you want me to do it. My understanding of this definition is that it covers contact by the person being deposed with the enumerated areas if the contact is done with an intent to arouse or gratify. That's my understanding of the definition.
What did you believe the definition to include and exclude? What kinds of activities?
I thought the definition included any activity by the person being deposed where the person was the actor and came in contact with those parts of the body with the purpose of intent or gratification, and excluded any other activity. For example, kissing is not covered by that, I don't think.
Did you understand the definition to be limited to sexual activity?
Yes, I understood the definition to be limited to physical contact with those areas of the body with the specific intent to arouse or gratify. That's what I understood it to be.
What specific acts did the definition include as you understood the definition on January 17, 1998?
Any contact with the areas that are mentioned, sir. If you contacted those parts of the body with an intent to arouse or gratify, that is covered.
What did you understand?
The person being deposed. If the person being deposed contacted those parts of another person's body with an intent to arouse or gratify, that was covered.
What did you understand the word causes in the first phrase? That is, for the purposes of this deposition, the person engages in sexual relations when the person knowingly causes contact.
I don't know what that means. It doesn't make any sense to me in this context. Because I think what I thought there was, since this was some sort of, as I remember they said in the previous discussion, now I'm only remembering now, so if I make a mistake you can correct me. As I remember from the previous discussion, they said this was some kind of definition that had something to do with sexual harassment. So that implies it's forcing to me. And there was never any issue of forcing in the case involving, well, any of these questions they were asking. They made it clear in this discussion I just reviewed that what they were referring to was intentional sexual conduct, not some sort of forcible abusive behavior. So I basically, I don't think I paid any attention to it because it appeared to me that that was something that had no reference to the facts that they admitted they were asking me about.
So, if I can be clear, Mr. President, was it your understanding back in January that the definition now marked as Grand Jury Exhibit 2 only included consensual sexual activity?
Now, my understanding, let me go back and say, my understanding, I'll tell you what it did include. My understanding was, when I was giving it to you, was that what was covered in those first two lines was any direct contact by the person being deposed with those parts of another person's body if the contact was done with an intent to arouse or gratify. That's what I believed it meant. That's what I believed it meant then. That's what I believe it means today.
I'm just trying to understand, Mr. President, you indicated that you put the definition in the context of a sexual harassment case.
No, I think it was not in the context of sexual harassment. I just reread those 4 pages, which obviously the grand jury doesn't have. But there was some reference to the fact that this definition apparently had some connection to some definition in another context, and that this was being used not in that context, not necessarily in the context of sexual harassment. So I would think that this causes would means to force someone to do something. That's what I read it. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Therefore, I did not believe that anyone had ever suggested that I had forced anyone to do anything, and that I did not do that, and so that could not have had any bearing on any questions related to Ms. Lewinsky.
I suppose since you have now read portions of the transcripts again, that you were reminded that you did not ask for any clarification of the terms. Is that correct? Of the definition?
No, sir. I thought it was when I read it, I thought it was rather strange, but definition. But it was the one the judge decided on, and I was bound by it, so I took it.
During the deposition, you remember that Ms. Lewinsky's name came up and you were asked several questions about her. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Before those questions actually got started, your attorney, Mr. Bennett, objected to any questions about Ms. Lewinsky, and he represented to Judge Wright, who was presiding. That was unusual, wasn't it, that a federal judge would come and actually, in your experience, that a federal judge would come and preside at a deposition?
Excuse me, could you identify the transcript page on which Mr. Bennett objected to all testimony about Ms. Lewinsky before it got started?
The objection, this quote that I am referring to, is going to begin at page 54 of the deposition.
That is into the testimony, though, after the testimony about Ms. Lewinsky has begun, is it not?
Mr. President, is it unusual for a federal judge to preside over a civil deposition?
I think it is, but this was an unusual case. I believe I know why she did it.
Your attorney, Mr. Bennett, objected to the questions about Ms. Lewinsky, didn't he?
What page is that on, sir?
Page 54. Where he questions whether the attorneys for Ms. Jones had a good faith basis to ask some of the questions that they were posing to her. His objections actually begin on page 53, since the President pointed out that the grand jurors correctly do not have a copy of the deposition. I will read the portion that I'm referring to. And this begins at line 1 on page 54. I question the good faith of counsel, the innuendo of the question. Counsel is fully aware that Ms. Lewinsky has filed, has an affidavit which they are in possession of, saying that there is absolutely no sex of any kind, in any manner, shape, or form with President Clinton.
Where is that?
That is on page 54, Mr. President, beginning at line 1. About midway through line 1.
Well, actually, in the present tense, that's an accurate statement. That was an accurate statement. I think what Mr. Bennett was concerned about, maybe it would be helpful to you and to the grand jurors, quite apart from these comments, if I could tell you what his state of mind was, what my state of mind was, and why I think the judge was there in the first place. If you don't want me to do it, I won't. But I think it will help to explain a lot of this.
Well, we are interested, and I know from the question.
Greta Van Susteren, tell us what prosecutors are trying to do here.
Your mind, when you were grand jury exhibit.
What we're seeing is dueling with the witness and the examiner asking questions. You can see they're both hair-splitting over the definition. The prosecutor's attempting to set a trap.
Goes to whether, and you were familiar, and what Mr. Bennett was referring to, obviously, is Ms. Lewinsky's affidavit. And we'll have that marked, Mr. President, as grand jury exhibit WJC-4. You remember that Ms. Lewinsky's affidavit said that she had had no sexual relationship with you. You remember that?
I do.
And you remember in the deposition that Mr. Bennett asked you about that. This is at the end of towards the end of the deposition. And you indicated, he asked you whether the statement that Ms. Lewinsky made in her affidavit was true. And you indicated that it was absolutely correct.
I did, and at the time that she made the statement, and indeed to the present day, because as far as I know she was never deposed since the judge ruled she would not be permitted to testify in a case the judge ruled had no merit. That is, this case we're talking about. I believe at the time that she filled out this affidavit, if she believed that the definition of sexual relationship was two people having intercourse, then this is accurate. And I believe that is the definition that most ordinary Americans would give it. If you said Jane and Harry have a sexual relationship, and you're not talking about people being drawn into a lawsuit and being given definitions and then a great effort to trick them in some way, but you're just talking about people in ordinary conversation. I'll bet the grand jurors, if they were talking about two people they know and said they have a sexual relationship, they meant they were sleeping together. They meant they were having intercourse together. So I'm not at all sure that this affidavit is not true and was not true in Ms. Lewinsky's mind at the time she swore it out.
Did you talk with Ms. Lewinsky about what she meant to write in her affidavit?
I didn't talk to her about her definition. I did not know what was in this affidavit before it was filled out specifically. I did not know what words were used specifically before it was filled out or what meaning she gave to them. But I'm just telling you that it's certainly true what she says here, that we didn't have, there was no employment, no benefit in exchange. There was nothing having anything to do with sexual harassment. And if she defined sexual relationship in the way I think most Americans do, meaning intercourse, then she told the truth. And that depends on what was in her mind. I don't know what was in her mind. You'll have to ask her that.
But you indicated before that you were aware of what she intended by the term sexual relationship.
No, sir. I said I thought that this could be a truthful affidavit. And when I read it, since that's the way I would define it, since keep in mind she was not bound by this sexual relations definition, which is highly unusual. I think anybody would admit that. When she used a different term, sexual relationship, if she meant by that what most people mean by it, then that is not an untruthful statement.
So your definition of sexual relationship is intercourse only, is that correct?
No, not necessarily intercourse only, but it would include intercourse. I believe that the common understanding of the term, if you say two people are having a sexual relationship, most people believe that includes intercourse. So if that's what Ms. Lewinsky thought, then this is a truthful affidavit. I don't know what was in her mind, but if that's what she thought, the affidavit is true.
What else would sexual relationship include besides intercourse?
Well, I think, let me answer what I said before. I think most people, when they use that term, include sexual relationships and whatever other sexual contact is involved in a particular relationship, but they think it includes intercourse as well. And I would thought so before I got into this case and heard all I've heard and seen all I've seen. I would have thought that that's what nearly everybody thought it meant.
Well, I ask, Mr. President, because you're using very document, Grand Jury Exhibit 4, WJC 4, represented to Judge Wright that his understanding of the meaning of that affidavit, which you've indicated you thought, Ms. Lewinsky thought she was referring just to intercourse. He says to Judge Wright that it meant absolutely no sex of any kind in any manner, shape, or form.
Well, let me say this. I didn't have any discussion, obviously at this moment, with Mr. Bennett. I'm not even sure I paid much attention to what he was saying. I was ready to get on with my testimony here, and they were having these constant discussions all through the deposition. But that statement in the present tense, at least, is not inaccurate, if that's what Mr. Bennett meant. That is, at the time that he said that, and for some time before, that would be a completely accurate statement. Now, I don't believe that he was, I don't know what he meant. You'd have to talk to him, because I just wasn't involved in this, and I didn't pay much attention to what was being said. I was just waiting for him to get back to me. So I can't comment on or be held responsible for whatever he said about that, I don't think.
Well, do you agree with me that if he misled Judge Wright in some way, that you would have corrected the record and said, excuse me, Mr. Bennett, I think the judge is getting a misimpression by what you're saying?
If Mr. Bennett was representing me, I wasn't representing him. And I wasn't even paying much attention to this conversation, which is why when you started asking me about this, I asked to see the deposition. I was focusing on my answers to the questions. And I've told you what I believe about this deposition, which I believe to be true. And it's obvious, and I think by your questions you have betrayed that the Jones lawyer's strategy in this case had nothing to do with uncovering or proving sexual harassment. By the time this discovery started, they knew they had a bad case on the law, and they knew what our evidence was. They knew they had a lousy case on the facts. And so their strategy, since they were being funded by my political opponents, was to have this dragnet of discovery. They wanted to cover everybody, and they convinced the judge, because she gave them strict orders not to leak, that they should be treated like other plaintiffs in other civil cases, and how could they ever know whether there had been any sexual harassment unless they first knew whether there had been any sex. And so with that broad mandate, limited by time and employment in the federal or state government, they proceeded to cross the country and try to turn up whatever they could. Not because they thought it would help their case. By the time they did this discovery, they knew what the deal was in their case, and they knew what was going to happen, and Judge Wright subsequently threw it out. Now, let me finish, Mr. Bennett. You brought this up. Excuse me, Mr. Bittman. What they wanted to do, and what they did do, and what they had done by the time I showed up here, was to find any negative information they could on me, whether it was true or not, get it in a deposition, and then leak it, even though it was illegal to do so. It happened repeatedly. The judge gave them orders. One of the reasons she was sitting in that deposition was because she was trying to make sure that it didn't get out of hand. But that was their strategy, and they did a good job of it, and they got away with it. I've been subject to quite a lot of illegal leaking, and they had a very determined, deliberate strategy, because their real goal was to hurt me. When they knew they couldn't win the lawsuit, they thought, well, maybe we can pummel them. Maybe they thought I'd settle. Maybe they just thought they would get some political advantage out of it. But that's what was going on here. Now, I'm trying to be honest with you, and it hurts me. And I'm trying to tell you the truth about what happened between Miss Lewinsky and me. But that does not change the fact that the real reason they were zeroing in on anybody was to try to get any person in there, no matter how uninvolved with Paula Jones, no matter how uninvolved with sexual harassment, so they could hurt me politically. That's what was going on, because by this time, this thing had been going on a long time. They knew what our evidence was. They knew what the law was in the circuit in which we were bringing this case. And so they just thought they would take a wrecking ball to me and see if they could do some damage.
Judge Wright had ruled that the attorneys in the Jones case were permitted to ask you certain questions.
She certainly did, and they asked them, and I did my best to answer them. I'm just trying to tell you what my state of mind was.
To answer those questions truthfully, Mr. President.
It was. But it was not my responsibility in the face of their repeated illegal leaking. It was not my responsibility to volunteer a lot of information. There are many cases in this deposition where I gave, and keep in mind, I treated them, frankly, with respect. I prepared very well for this deposition on the Jones matters. I prepared very well on that. I did not know that Linda Tripp had been involved in the preparation of this deposition, or that all of them. No, I don't. I just know that what I read in the papers about it. But I had no way of knowing that they would ask me all these detailed questions. I did the best I could to answer them. But in this deposition, Mr. Bittman, I was doing my best to be truthful. I was not trying to be particularly helpful to them, and I didn't think I had an obligation to be particularly helpful to them to further, when I knew that there was no evidence here of sexual harassment, and I knew what they wanted to do was to leak this even though it was unlawful to do so. That's what I knew.
President, that you had an obligation to make sure that the presiding federal judge was on board and had the correct facts. Did you believe that was your obligation?
Sir, I was trying to answer my testimony. I was thinking about my testimony. I don't believe I ever even focused on what Mr. Bennett said in the exact words he did until I started reading this transcript carefully for this hearing. That moment, that whole argument just passed me by. I was a witness. I was trying to focus on what I said and how I said it. And believe me, I knew what the purpose of the deposition was. And sure enough, by the way, it did all leak, just like I knew it would.
Let me ask you, Mr. President, you indicate in your statement that you were alone in this Lewinsky. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
How many times were you alone with Mr. Lewinsky?
Let me begin with the correct answer. I don't know for sure. But if you would like me to give an educated guess, I will do that. But I do not know for sure. And I will tell you what I think based on what I remember. But I can't be held to a specific time because I don't have records of all of it.
How many times do you think?
Well, there are two different periods here. There's the period when she worked in the White House until April of '96. And then there's the period when she came back to visit me from February '97 until late December '97. Based on our records, let's start with the records where we have the best records and the closest in time. Based on our records, between February and December, it appears to me that at least I could have seen her approximately 9 times. Although I do not believe I saw her quite that many times, at least it could have happened. We think there were 9 or 10 times when she was in the White House when I was in the Oval Office, when I could have seen her. I do not believe I saw her that many times, but I could have. Now, we have no records for the time when she was an employee at the White House, because we have no records of that for any of the employees at the White House, unless there was some formally scheduled meeting that was on the calendar for the day. I remember, I'll tell you what I remember. I remember meeting her, or having my first real conversation with her during the government shutdown in November of '95, when she, as I explained in my deposition, during the government shutdown, most federal employees were actually prohibited from coming to work, even in the White House. Most people in the White House couldn't come to work. The Chief of Staff could come to work. My National Security Advisor could come to work. I could. Therefore, interns were assigned to all offices. And I believe it was her last week as an intern. Anyway, she worked in the Chief of Staff's office. One night she brought me some pizza. We had some remarks. Now, the next time I remember seeing her alone was on a couple of occasions when she was working in the Legislative Affairs Office as a full-time employee. I remember specifically, I have a specific recollection of 2 times. I don't remember when they were, but I remember twice when on Sunday afternoon she brought papers down to me, stayed, and we were alone. And I'm frankly quite sure, although I have no specific memory, I'm quite sure there were a couple of more times, probably 2 times more, 3 times more. That's what I would say. That's what I can remember, but I do not remember when they were or at what time of day they were or what the facts were. But I have a general memory that would say I certainly saw her more than twice during that period between January and April of 1996 when she worked there.
So, if I could summarize your testimony, approximately 5 times you saw her before she left the White House and approximately 9 times after she left the employment of the White House?
There were several times in 97. I've told you that I've looked at my calendar, and I'll tell you what I think the outer limits are. I would think that would sound about right. There could be, in that first 4-month period, maybe there's 1 or 2 more, maybe there's 1 less. I just don't know. I don't remember. I didn't keep records. But I'm giving you what I specifically remember and then what I generally remember. I'm doing the best to be helpful to you.
Have you reviewed the records for December 28, 1997, Mr. President?
Yes, sir, I have.
Do you believe that Ms. Lewinsky was at the White House and saw you on December 28, 1997?
Yes, sir, I do.
And do you remember talking with Ms. Lewinsky about her subpoena that she had received for the Paula Jones case on that day?
I remember talking with Ms. Lewinsky about her testimony, or about the prospect that she might have to give testimony. And she talked to me about that, and I remember that.
And you also gave her Christmas gifts, is that not correct, Mr. President?
That is correct. They were Christmas gifts, and they were going-away gifts. She was moving to New York and taking a new job, starting a new life, and I gave her some gifts.
And you actually requested this meeting, is that not correct?
I don't remember that, Mr. Bittman, but it's quite possible that I invited her to come by before she left town. But usually when we met, she requested the meetings. And my recollection is in 1997, she asked to meet with me several times when I could not meet with her and did not do so. But it's quite possible that because she had given me a Christmas gift, and because she was leaving, that I invited her to come by the White House and get a couple of gifts and before she left town. I don't remember who requested the meeting, though. I'm sorry, I don't.
You were alone with her on December 28, 1997.
Yes, sir, I was.
The gifts that you gave her were a canvas bag from the Black Dog restaurant at Martha's Vineyard. Is that right?
Well, that was just something I had in the place to contain the gifts. But I believe that the gifts I gave her I put them in that bag. That's what I had there, and I knew she liked things from the Black Dog, so I gave her. I think that's what I put the presents in. I remember what the presents were. I don't remember what the bag was I gave them in.
Did you also give her a marble bear's head carving from Vancouver, Canada?
I did do that. I remember that.
You also gave her a Rockettes blanket that has the famous Rockettes from New York?
I did do that. I had that in my possession for a couple of years, but had never used it, and she was going to New York, so I thought it would be a nice thing to give her.
You gave her a box of cherry chocolates. Is that right?
I don't remember that, sir. I mean, there could have been. I just don't remember. I remember giving the bear and the throw. I don't remember what else. And it seems to me like there was one other thing in that bag. I didn't remember the cherry chocolates.
How about a pin of the New York skyline?
That could have been in there. I seem to remember I gave her some kind of pin.
What about a pair of joke sunglasses?
I don't remember that. I'm not denying it. I'm telling you what I remember and what I don't.
You have given Ms. Lewinsky gifts on other occasions, though. Is that right, Mr. President?
Yes, I have.
This, though, was you gave her the most gifts that you had ever given her in a single day. Is that right?
Well, that's probably true. It was sort of like a going-away present and a Christmas present as well. And She had given me a particularly nice book for Christmas, an antique book on presidents. She knew that I collected old books, and it was a very nice thing. And I just thought I ought to get up a few things and give them to her before she left.
You mentioned that you discussed her subpoena in the Paula Jones case. Tell us specifically, what did you discuss?
No, sir, that's not what I said. I said, my recollection is, I knew by then, of course, that she had gotten a subpoena, and I knew that she was, therefore, was slated to testify. And she mentioned to me, and I believe it was at this meeting, she mentioned, I remember a conversation about the possibility of her testifying. I believe it must have occurred on the 28th. She mentioned to me that she did not want to testify. So that's how it came up, not in the context of, I heard you have a subpoena, let's talk about it. She raised the issue with me in the context of her desire to avoid testifying, which I certainly understood, not only because there were some embarrassing facts about our relationship that were inappropriate, but also because a whole lot of innocent people were being traumatized and dragged through the mud by these Jones lawyers with their dragnet strategy. And since she didn't know Paula Jones and knew nothing about sexual harassment and certainly had no experience with that, I clearly understood why she didn't want to be a part of it.
And you didn't want her to testify, did you? You didn't want her to disclose these embarrassing facts of this inappropriate, intimate relationship that you had. Is that correct?
Well, I did not want her to have to testify and go through that, and of course I didn't want her to do that. Of course not.
Did you want those facts, not only the fact that she would testify, but did you want the facts that she had about your embarrassing, inappropriate, intimate relationship to be disclosed?
Not there, but not in any context. However, I never had any high confidence that they wouldn't be.
Did anyone, as far as you knew, know about your embarrassing, inappropriate, intimate relationship that you had with Ms. Lewinsky?
At that time, I was unaware that she had told anyone else about it, but if I had known that, it would not have surprised me.
Had you told anyone?
Absolutely not.
Had you tried, in fact, not to let anyone else know about this relationship?
Well, of course.
What did you do?
Well, I never said anything about it, for one thing. And I did what people do when they do the wrong thing. I tried to do it where nobody else was looking at it.
How many times did you do that?
Well, if you go back to my statement, I remember there were a few times in '96. I can't say with any certainty. There was once in early '97. After she left the White House, I do not believe I ever had any inappropriate contact with her in the rest of '96. There was one occasion in '97 when, regrettably, that we were together for a few minutes, I think about 20 minutes, and there was inappropriate contact. And after that, to the best of my memory and belief, it did not occur again.
Did you tell her in the conversation about her being subpoenaed, she was upset about it, you acknowledged that? I'm sorry, you have to respond for the record. Yes or no, do you agree that she was upset about being subpoenaed?
Oh, yes, sir, she was upset. We didn't talk about subpoena, but she was upset. She said, I don't want to testify. I know nothing about this. I certainly know nothing about sexual harassment. Why do they want me to testify? And I explained to her why they were doing this and why all these women were on these lists, and people that they knew good and well had nothing to do with any sexual harassment. I explained to her that it was a political lawsuit. They wanted to get whatever they could under oath that was damaging to me, and then they wanted to leak it in violation of the judge's orders and turn up their nose and say, well, you can't prove we did it. Now, that was their strategy, and they were very frustrated because everything they leaked so far was old news. So they desperately were trying to validate this massive amount of money they'd spent by finding some new news. And she didn't want to be caught up in that, and I didn't blame her.
You were familiar, weren't you, Mr. President, that she had received a subpoena? You've already acknowledged
Yes, sir, I was.
And Mr. Jordan informed you of that, is that right?
No, sir, I believe, and I believe I testified to this in my deposition. I think the first person who told me that she had been subpoenaed was Bruce Lindsay. I think the first, and I was in this deposition, it's a little bit cloudy, but I was trying to remember who the first person who told me was. Because the question was, as I remember, could we go to that in the deposition, since you asked me that?
Actually, I think you're, with all respect, I think you may be confusing when Mr. Lindsay, perhaps Mr. Lindsay did tell you she was subpoenaed, I don't know. But in your deposition, you were referring to Mr. Lindsay notifying you that she had been identified as a witness.
Where is that, sir? I don't want to get, I just want, what page is that?
Well, actually...
No, it had to be, because I saw a witness list much earlier than that.
Much earlier than December 28th?
Oh, sure. And earlier than, I believe Monica...
Page 69.
I believe Monica Lewinsky's name was on a witness list earlier than she was subpoenaed.
Yes.
So I believe when I was answering this question, at least I thought I was answering when I found out. Yes, see, there's, on page 68, did anyone other than your attorneys ever tell you Monica Lewinsky had been served with a subpoena in this case? Then I said, I don't think so. Then I said, did you ever talk to Monica about the possibility that she might be asked to testify in this case? Then I gave an answer that was non-responsive that really tried to finish the answer above. I said, Bruce Lindsay. I think Bruce Lindsay told me that she was. I think maybe that's the first person who told me that she was. I want to be as accurate as I can. And that, I believe that Bruce is the first person who told me that Monica had gotten a subpoena.
Did you in fact have a conversation with Mr. Jordan on the evening of December 19, 1997, in which he talked to you about Monica being in Mr. Jordan's office, having a copy of the subpoena, and being upset about being subpoenaed?
I remember that Mr. Jordan was in the White House on December 19th and for an event of some kind, that he came up to the residence floor and told me that that Monica had gotten a subpoena and or that Monica was going to have to testify. And I think he told me he recommended a lawyer for her. I believe that's what happened. But it was a very brief conversation. He was there for some other reason.
And if Mr. Jordan testified that he had also spoken to you at around 5 p.m. and the White House phone logs reflect this, that he called you at around the time he met with Ms. Lewinsky and informed you then that she'd been subpoenaed. Is that consistent with your memory? Also on the 19th.
I had a lot of phone conversations with Vernon about this. I didn't keep records of them. I now have some records. My memory is not clear. My testimony on that was not clear. I just knew that I'd talked to Vernon at some time, but I thought that Bruce was the first person who told me.
But Mr. Jordan had also told you. Is that right?
Yes, I now know I had a conversation with Mr. Jordan about it where he said something to me about that.
And that was probably on the 19th, December 19th.
Well, I know I saw him on the 19th, so I'm quite sure. And if he says he talked to me on the 19th, I believe he would have better records, and I certainly think he's a truthful person.
Getting back to your meeting with Ms. Lewinsky on December 28th, you are aware that she's been subpoenaed. You are aware, are you not, Mr. President, that the subpoena called for the production of, among other things, all the gifts that you had given Ms. Lewinsky. You were aware of that on December 28th, weren't you?
I'm not sure. And I understand this is an important question. I did have a conversation with Ms. Lewinsky at some time about gifts, the gifts I'd given her. I do not know whether it occurred on the 28th or whether it occurred earlier. I do not know whether it occurred in person or whether it occurred on the telephone. I have searched my memory for this because I know it's an important issue. Perhaps I can tell you what I remember about the conversation, and you can see when I'm having trouble placing the date.
Please.
The reason I'm not sure it happened on the 28th is that my recollection is that Ms. Lewinsky said something to me like, what if they ask me about the gifts you've given me? That's the memory I have. That's why I questioned whether it happened on the 28th, because she had a subpoena with a request for production. And I told her that if they asked her for gifts, she'd have to give them whatever she had, that's what the law was. And let me also tell you, Mr. Bittman, if you go back and look at my testimony here, I actually asked the Jones lawyers for help on one occasion when they were asking me what gifts I had given her, so they could, I was never hung up about this gift issue. Maybe it's because I have a different experience, but you know, the president gets hundreds of gifts a year, maybe more. I have always given a lot of gifts to people, especially if they give me gifts. And this was no big deal to me. I mean, it's nice. I enjoy it. I gave dozens of personal gifts to people last Christmas. I give gifts to people all the time. Friends of mine gives me gifts all the time. Give me ties, give me books, give me other things. So it was just not a big deal. And I told Ms. Lewinsky that just to pass. I said, you know, if they ask you for this, you'll have to give them whatever you have. And I think, Mr. Bittman, it must have happened before then, because either that or Ms. Lewinsky didn't want to tell me that she had to subpoena it, because that was the language I remember her using.
Well, didn't she tell you, Mr. President, that the subpoena specifically called for a hat pin that you had produced, that you had given her?
I don't remember that. I remember, sir, I've told you what I remember. That doesn't mean that my memory is accurate. A lot of things have happened in the last several months. A lot of things were happening then, but my memory is she asked me a general question about gifts. And my memory is she asked me in the hypothetical. So it's possible that I had a conversation with her before she got a subpoena. Or it's possible she didn't want to tell me that was part of the subpoena. I don't know. But she may have been worried about this gift business, but it didn't bother me. My experience was totally different. I told her, I said, look, the way these things work is when a person gets a subpoena, you have to give them whatever you have. That's what's the rule. That's what the law is. And when I was asked about this in my deposition, even though I was not trying to be helpful particularly to these people that I thought were not well motivated or being honest or even lawful in their conduct vis-a-vis me, that is the Jones legal team, I did ask them specifically to enumerate the gifts. I asked them to help me because I couldn't remember the specifics. So all I'm saying is I wasn't troubled by this gift issue.
And your testimony is that Ms. Lewinsky was concerned about her turning over any gifts that you had given her, and that your recommendation to her was, absolutely, Monica, you have to produce everything that I have given you. Is that your testimony?
My testimony is what I have said, and let me reiterate it. I don't want to agree to a characterization of it. I want to just say what it was. My testimony is that my memory is that on some date in December, and I'm sorry I don't remember when it was, she said, well, what if they ask me about the gifts you have given me? And I said, well, if you get a request to produce those, you have to give them whatever you have. And to me, I don't now see this as a problem. And if she thought it was a problem, I think it must have been really a misapprehension of the circumstances. I certainly never encouraged her not to comply lawfully with the subpoena.
Mr. President, if your intent was, as you have earlier testified, that you didn't want anyone to know about this relationship you had with Ms. Lewinsky, why would you feel comfortable giving her gifts in the middle of discovery in the Paula Jones case?
Well, sir, for one thing, there was no existing improper relationship at that time. I had, for nearly a year, done my best to be a friend to Ms. Lewinsky, to be a counselor to her, to give her good advice, and to help her. She had, for her part, most of the time, accepted the changed circumstances. She talked to me a lot about her life, her job ambitions, and she continued to give me gifts. And I felt that it was the right thing to do to give her gifts back. I have always given a lot of people gifts. I have always been given gifts. I do not think there's anything improper about a man giving a woman a gift or a woman giving a man a gift that necessarily connotes an improper relationship. So it didn't bother me. I wasn't, you know, this was December 28th. I gave her some gifts. I wasn't worried about it. I thought it was an all right thing to do.
What about notes and letters, cards, letters, and notes from Ms. Lewinsky? After this relationship, this inappropriate, intimate relationship between you and Ms. Lewinsky ended, she continued to send you numerous intimate notes and cards. Is that right?
Well, some of them were somewhat intimate. I'd say most of the notes and cards were affectionate, all right, but she had clearly accepted the fact that there could be no contact between us that was in any way inappropriate. Now, she sent cards sometimes that were just funny, even a little bit off color, but they were funny. She liked to send me cards, and I got a lot of those cards. Several anyway, I don't know a lot. I got a few.
She professed her love to you in these cards after the end of the relationship, didn't she? She said she loved you.
Sir, the truth is that most of the time, even when she was expressing her feelings for me in affectionate terms, I believe that she had accepted, understood my decision to stop this inappropriate contact. She knew from the very beginning of our relationship that I was apprehensive about it. And I think that, in a way, she felt a little freer to be affectionate because she knew that nothing else was going to happen. I can't explain entirely what was in her mind, but most of these messages were not what you would call over the top. They weren't things that if you read them you would say, oh my goodness, these people are having some sort of sexual affair.
Mr. President.
But some of them were quite affectionate.
My question was, did she or did she not profess her love to you in these cards and letters that she sent to you after the relationship ended?
Most of them were signed love, love, Monica. I don't know that I would consider, I don't believe that in most of these cards and letters she professed her love, but she might well have. But you know, love can mean different things too, Mr. Bittman. There are a lot of women with whom I have never had any inappropriate contact who are friends of mine who will say from time to time, I love you. And I know that they don't mean anything wrong by that.
Specifically, Mr. President, do you remember a card she sent you after she saw the movie Titanic, in which she said that she reminisced or dreamed about the romantic feelings that occurred in the movie and how that reminded her of you two. Do you remember that?
No, sir, but she could have sent it. Just because I don't remember it doesn't mean it wasn't there.
You're not denying that?
Oh, no, I wouldn't deny that. I just don't remember it. You asked me if I remembered. I don't. She might have done it.
Do you ever remember telling her, Mr. President, that she should not write some of the things that she does in these cards and letters that she sends to you because it reveals, if disclosed, this relationship that you had and that she shouldn't do it?
I remember telling her she should be careful what she wrote because a lot of it was clearly inappropriate and would be embarrassing if somebody else read it. I don't remember when I said that. I don't remember whether it was in 96 or when it was. I don't remember.
Embarrassing in that it was revealing of the intimate relationship that you and she had. Is that right?
I do not know when I said this, so I don't know whether we did have any sort of inappropriate relationship at the time I said that to her. I don't remember. But it's obvious that if she wrote things that she should not have written down and someone else read it, that it would be embarrassing.
She certainly sent you something like that after the relationship began, didn't she? And so therefore there was, at the time she said it, something inappropriate going on?
Well, my recollection is that she, that maybe because of changed circumstances in her own life, in 1997, after there was no more inappropriate contact, that she sent me more things in the mail. And that there was sort of a disconnect sometimes between what she was saying and the plain facts of our relationship. And I don't know what caused that, but it may have been dissatisfaction with the rest of her life. I don't know. She had, from the time I first met her, talked to me about the rest of her personal life, and it may be that there was some reason for that. It may be that when I did the right thing and made it stick, that in a way she felt a need to cling more closely or try to get closer to me, even though she knew nothing improper was happening or was going to happen. I don't know the answer to that.
After you gave her the gifts on December 28th, did you speak with your secretary, Ms. Curry, and ask her to pick up a box of gifts that, or some compilation of gifts that Ms. Lewinsky would have?
No, sir, I didn't do that. I did not do that.
When you testified in the Paula Jones case, this was only 2.5 weeks after you had given her these 6 gifts. You were asked at page 75 of the deposition, lines 2 through 5, well, have you ever given any gifts to Monica Lewinsky? And you answered, I don't recall. And you were correct. You pointed out that you actually asked them to prompt them. Do you know what they were?
Yeah, I think what I meant there was I don't recall what they were, not that I don't recall whether I had given them. And then if you see, they did give me these specifics. And I gave them quite a good explanation here. I remembered very clearly what the facts were about the black dog. And I said that I could have given her a hat pin and a Walt Whitman book, but I did not remember giving her a gold brooch, which was true. I didn't remember it. I may have given it to her, but I didn't remember giving her one. They didn't ask me about the Christmas gifts, and I don't know why. I didn't think to say anything about them, but I have to tell you again, I even invited them to have a list. It was obvious to me by this point in the definition, in this deposition, that these people had access to a lot of information from somewhere, and I presume it came from Linda Tripp. And I had no interest in not answering their questions about these gifts. I do not believe that gifts are incriminating, nor do I think they are wrong. I think it was a good thing to do. I'm still not sorry I gave Monica Lewinsky gifts.
Why did you assume that information came from Linda Tripp?
I didn't then.
You didn't? I thought you just testified.
No. I said I now assume that because of all of the subsequent events. I didn't know. I just knew that somebody had access to some information, and they may have known more about this than I did.
Let me ask you about the meeting you had with Betty Curry at the White House on Sunday, January 18 this year, the day after your deposition. First of all, you didn't, Mrs. Curry, your secretary of 6-some years, you never allowed her, did you, to watch whatever intimate activity you did with Miss Lewinsky, did you?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
And as far as you know, she couldn't hear anything either, is that right?
And there were a couple of times when Monica was there when I asked Betty to be places where she could hear because Monica was upset, and this was after there was all the inappropriate contact had been terminated.
Now, I'm talking about the times when you actually had the intimate contact.
She was, I believe that, well, first of all, on that one occasion in 1997, I do not know whether Betty was in the White House after the radio address in the Oval Office complex. I believe she probably was, but I'm not sure. But I'm certain that someone was there. Always someone was there. In 1996, I think most of the times that Ms. Lewinsky was there may not have been anybody around except maybe coming in and out, but not permanently. So that's correct. I didn't try to involve Betty in that in any way.
Well, not only did you not try to involve her, you specifically tried to exclude her and everyone else. Isn't that right?
Well, yes, I've never, I mean, it's almost humorous, sir. I'd have to be an exhibitionist not to have tried to exclude everyone else.
So if Ms. Curry testified that you approached her on the 18th, where you spoke with her, and you said you were always there when she was there. She wasn't, was she? That is Mrs. Curry.
She was always there in the White House, and I was concerned. Let me back up and say.
What about the radio address, Mr. Pittman?
Let me back up and say, Mr. Pittman. I knew about the radio address. I was sick after it was over, and I was pleased that at that time it had been nearly a year since any inappropriate contact had occurred with Ms. Lewinsky. I promised myself it wasn't going to happen again. The facts are complicated about what did happen and how it happened, but nonetheless I'm responsible for it. On that night she didn't. I was more concerned about the times after that when Ms. Lewinsky was upset, and I wanted to establish at least that I had not, because these questions were, some of them were off the wall, some of them were way out of line, I thought. And what I wanted to establish was that Betty was there at all other times in the complex, and I wanted to know what Betty's memory was about what she heard, what she could hear. And what I did not know was, I did not know that, and I was trying to figure out, and I was trying to figure out in a hurry because I knew something was up.
So you wanted to check her memory for what she remembered, and that is
that's correct.
Whether she remembered nothing or whether she remembered an inappropriate, intimate relationship.
No, I didn't ask her about it in that way. I asked her about what I was trying to determine was whether my recollection was right, that she was always in the office complex when Monica was there, and whether she thought she could hear any conversations we had, or did she hear any. And then I asked her specifically about a couple of times when Once when I asked her to remain in the dining room, Betty, while I met with Monica in my study. And once when I took Monica into the small office Nancy Hernreich occupies right next to Betty's and talked to her there for a few minutes. That's my recollection of that. I knew, Mr. Bittman, to a reasonable certainty that I was going to be asked more questions about this. I didn't really expect you to be in the Jones case at the time. I thought what would happen is that it would break in the press, and I was trying to get the facts down. I was trying to understand what the facts were.
If Ms. Curry testified that these were not really questions to her, that they were more like statements, is that not true?
Well, I can't testify as to what her perception was. I can tell you this. I was trying to get information in a hurry. I was downloading what I remembered. I think Ms. Curry would also testify that I explicitly told her, once I realized that you were involved in the Jones case, you, the Office of Independent Counsel, and that she might have to be called as a witness, that she should just go in there and tell the truth, tell what she knew, and be perfectly truthful. So I was not trying to get Betty Curry to say something that was untruthful. I was trying to get as much information as quickly as I could.
What information were you trying to get from her when you said, I was never alone with her, right?
I don't remember exactly what I did say with her. That's what you say I said.
If Ms. Curry testified to that she says you told her, I was never alone with her, right?
Well, I was never alone with her.
Did you not say that, Mr. President?
Mr. Bittman, just a minute. I was never alone with her, right, might be a question. And what I might have meant by that is in the Oval Office complex.
Well, you knew the answer.
We've been going for more than an hour. Would you mind if we take a break? I need to go to the restroom.
2:38.
We see a natural break in the president's testimony here. Let's go quickly to our legal analysts, Greta Van Susteren and Roger Cossack. Greta and Roger, what are the prosecutors trying to establish, and how's the president responding?
What they're trying to do, Judy, is to set the trap, set the hook. They're asking open-ended questions and letting the president ramble on and on and on, hoping that he will say something inconsistent with Monica Lewinsky. They believe Monica Lewinsky. Anything inconsistent, they consider perjury.
See, the thing you have to remember here is that they've already spoken to Monica Lewinsky. They know the answers to most of these questions. They've already done most of their interviewing. They've already spoken to Betty Curry. So what they want to do is just let the president talk, and believe me, that's exactly what he's doing. This is not a very good witness.
Reading and reading is CNN's Jean Meserve. She has copies of what we have before us. Jean?
2 volumes, 3,183 pages long. They include a lot of things. Also, they include a lot of deletions. Here, one of the so-called redactions, parts that were blacked out for reasons of national security, privacy, or sexual explicitness. There's a lot of legal stuff in here. There are a lot of charts and maps that explain what's going on. We have maps of the White House. We have charts that record Lewinsky's 44 visits to the White House, including 12 in which she saw the president alone. There are charts of contacts between Lewinsky and the president, specifying whether there was a sexual encounter, specifying whether they exchanged gifts. Also noted her phone calls in which they engaged in so-called phone sex. Also in here, transcripts of his grand jury testimony, her grand jury testimony, and interviews which she conducted with the Office of the Independent Counsel. We're continuing to review these, and we'll bring you more specifics. Bernie, Judy?
Okay, thank you, Jean Meserve. This next tape runs 50 seconds. It is segment 3, and it begins...
50 minutes, I know you mean to say.
50 minutes. It begins with the president's attorney, David Kendall, noting the time as being 2:48.
We're ready. Okay. 2:38. Oh, sorry, 48. Excuse me. Cheating this court.
Mr. President, I want to, before I go into a new subject area, briefly go over something you were talking about with Mr. Bittman. The statement of your attorney, Mr. Bennett, at Paul Jones' deposition Counsel is fully aware, it's page 54, line 5. Counsel is fully aware that Ms. Lewinsky has an affidavit which they are in possession of, saying that there is absolutely no sex of any kind, in any manner, shape, or form with President Clinton. That statement is made by your attorney in front of Judge Susan Wright, correct?
That's correct.
That statement is a completely false statement. Whether or not Mr. Bennett knew of your relationship with Ms. Lewinsky, the statement that there was no sex of any kind, in any manner, shape, or form with President Clinton was an utterly false statement. Is that correct?
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yes. If is means is and never has been, that's one thing. If it means there is none, that was a completely true statement. But as I have testified, I'd like to testify again. It is somewhat unusual for a client to be asked about his lawyer's statements instead of the other way around. I was not paying a great deal of attention to this exchange. I was focusing on my own testimony. And if you go back and look at the sequence of this, you will see that the Jones lawyers decided that this was going to be the Lewinsky deposition, not the Jones deposition. And given the facts of their case, I can understand why they made that decision. But that is not how I prepared for it. That is not how I was thinking about it. And I am not sure, Mr. Weisenberg, as I sit here today, that I sat there and followed all these interchanges between the lawyers. I'm quite sure that I didn't follow all the interchanges between the lawyers all that carefully. And I don't really believe, therefore, that I can say Mr. Bennett's testimony or statement is testimony and is imputable to me. I don't know that I was even paying that much attention to it.
You told us you were very well prepared for the deposition.
No, I said I was very well prepared to talk about Paula Jones and to talk about Kathleen Willey because she had made a related charge. She was the only person that I think I was asked about who had anything to do with anything that would remotely approximate sexual harassment. The rest of this, it looked to me like was more a way to harass me.
You're the President of the United States and your attorney tells the United States District Court judge that there's no sex of any kind, in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, and you feel no obligation to do anything about that at that deposition, Mr. President.
I have told you, Mr. Weisenberg, I will tell you for a third time, I am not even sure that when Mr. Bennett made that statement that I was concentrating on the exact words he used. Now, if someone had asked me on that day, are you having any kind of sexual relations with Ms. Lewinsky? That is, ask me a question in the present tense. I would have said no, and it would have been completely true.
Was Mr. Bennett aware of this tense-based distinction you're making?
I'm going to object to any questions about communications with private counsel.
Well, the witness has already testified, I think, that Mr. Bennett didn't know about the inappropriate relationship with Ms. Lewinsky. And I guess...
Well, you'll have to ask him that. You know, he was not a sworn witness, and I was not paying that close attention to what he was saying. I've told you that repeatedly. I never even focused on that until I read it in this transcript in preparation for this testimony. When I was in there, I didn't think about my lawyers. I was frankly thinking about myself and my testimony and trying to answer the questions.
I just want to make sure I understand, Mr. President. Do you mean today that because you were not engaging in sexual activity with Ms. Lewinsky during the deposition that the statement of Mr. Bennett might be literally true?
No, sir. I mean, that at the time of the deposition, that was well beyond any point of improper contact between me and Ms. Lewinsky. So that anyone generally speaking in the present tense, saying there is not an improper relationship, would be telling the truth if that person said there was not in the present tense. Present tense encompassing many months. That's what I meant by that. Not that I wasn't trying to give you a cute answer, that I was obviously not involved in anything improper during the deposition. I was trying to tell you that generally speaking in the present tense, if someone said that, that would be true. But I don't know what Mr. Bennett had in his mind. I don't know. I didn't pay any attention to this colloquy that went on. I was waiting for my instructions as a witness to go forward. I was worried about my own testimony.
I want to go back to some questions about Mr. Jordan. We're going to touch a little bit on the December 19th meeting and some others. Mr. Jordan is a longtime friend of yours. Is that correct, Mr. President?
Yes, sir. We've been friends probably 20 years, maybe more.
You said you consider him to be a truthful person, correct?
I do.
If Mr. Jordan has told us that he visited you in the residence on the night of the 19th, after a White House holiday dinner, to discuss Monica Lewinsky and her subpoena with you, do you have any reason to doubt it?
No, I've never known him to say anything that wasn't true. And his memory of these events, I think, would be better than mine, because I had a lot of other things going on.
We have waived records that will show that, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to, since you don't dispute that, I'm not going to show them right now. And in fact, that was the very day Monica Lewinsky was subpoenaed, wasn't it? The night that he came to see you.
I don't have independent memory of that, but you would probably know that. I mean, I'm sure there's a record of when she got her subpoena.
If Mr. Jordan has told us that he spoke with you over the phone within about an hour of Monica receiving her subpoena, and later visited you that very night at the White House to discuss it, again, you'd have no reason to doubt him. Is that correct?
I believe I've already testified about that here today, that I had lots of conversations with Vernon. I'm sure that I had lots of conversations with him that included comments about this, and if he has a specific memory of when I had some conversation on a certain day, I would be inclined to trust his memory over mine, because under the present circumstances, my head's probably more cluttered than his, and my schedule's probably busier, and he probably got better records.
And when Mr. Jordan met with you at the residence that night, sir, he asked you if you had been involved in a sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky, didn't he?
I do not remember exactly what the nature of the conversation was. I do remember that I told him, excuse me, that I told him that there was no sexual relationship between me and Monica Lewinsky, which was true. And that all I remember for the rest is that he said he had referred her to a lawyer. And I believe it was Mr. Carter, and I don't believe I've ever met Mr. Carter. I don't think I know him.
Mr. President, if Mr. Jordan has told us that he had a very disturbing conversation with Ms. Lewinsky that day, then went over to visit you at the White House, and that before he asked you the question about sexual relationship, related that disturbing conversation to you. The conversation being that Ms. Lewinsky had a fixation on you and thought that perhaps the First Lady would leave you at the end of that you would leave the First Lady at the end of your term and come be with Ms. Lewinsky. Do you have any reason to doubt him that it was on that night that that conversation happened?
All I can tell you, sir, is I certainly don't remember him saying that. Now, he could have said that, because, as you know, a great many things happened in the ensuing 2 or 3 days. And I could have just forgotten it, but I don't remember him ever saying that.
At any time?
No, I don't remember him saying that. What I remember was that he said that Monica came to see him, that she was upset that she was going to have to testify, that he had referred her to a lawyer.
In fact, she was very distraught about the subpoena, according to Mr. Jordan, wasn't she?
Well, he said she was upset about it. I remember that. I don't remember any, at any time when he said this, this other thing you just quoted me. I'm sorry, I just don't remember that.
That is something that one would be likely to remember, don't you think, Mr. President?
I think I would, and I'd be happy to share it with you if I did. I only had one encounter with Ms. Lewinsky I seem to remember, which was somewhat maybe reminiscent of that, but not that, if you will, obsessive, if that's the way you want to use that word.
Do you recall him at all telling you that he was concerned about her fascination with you, even if you don't remember the specific conversation about you leaving the First Lady?
I recall him saying he thought that she was upset with, somewhat fixated on me, that she acknowledged that she was not having a sexual relationship with me, and that she did not want to be drug into the Jones lawsuit. That's what I recall. And I recall his saying that he had recommended a lawyer to her and she had gone to see the lawyer. That's what I recall. I don't remember the other thing you mentioned. I might well remember it if he had said it. Maybe he said it and I've forgotten it, but I can't tell you that I remember that.
Mr. President, you swore under oath in the Jones case that you didn't think anyone other than your lawyers had ever told you that Monica Lewinsky had been subpoenaed. Page 68, line 22 through page 69, line 3. Here's the testimony, sir. Question. We've gone over it a little bit before. Did anyone other than your attorneys ever tell you that Monica Lewinsky had been served with a subpoena in the case? Answer, I don't think so. Now, this deposition was taken just 3.5 weeks after, by your own testimony, Vernon Jordan made a trip at night to the White House to tell you, among other things, that Monica Lewinsky had been subpoenaed and was upset about it. Why did you give that testimony under oath in the Jones case, sir?
Well, Mr. Weisenberg, I think you have to, again, you have to put this in the context of the flow of questions. And I've already testified to this once today. I will testify to it again. My answer to the next question, I think, is a way of finishing my answer to the question and the answer you said there. I was trying to remember who the first person, other than Mr. Bennett, I don't think Mr. Bennett, who the first person told me that, who told me Paula Jones had, Monica Lewinsky had a subpoena. And I thought that Bruce Lindsay was the first person. And that's how I was trying to remember that. Keep in mind, sort of like today, these questions are being kind of put at me rapid fire, but unlike today, I hadn't had the opportunity to prepare at this level of detail. I was trying to keep a lot of things in my head that I had remembered with regard to the Paula Jones case and the Kathleen Willey matter, because I knew I would be asked about them. And I gave the best answers I could. Several of my answers are somewhat jumbled, but this is an honest attempt here. If you read both these answers, it's obvious they're both answers to that question you quoted, to remember the first person who was not Mr. Bennett who told me. And I don't believe Vernon was the first